Super glad that's how the recording will start. It's me going, hell yeah. Patrick, do you want to scoot slightly closer?
I'm sorry?
Do you want to scoot slightly
Oh, yeah.
closer since?
I'm sliding down.
Since it's just
You
the
want me to
three of us.
sit down all
It's
the way?
just the three of us in the room today,
Okay,
everybody.
it's Giant, like Viking longhouse table, and there's 3 people sitting at it.
The plan for today is, we're gonna present 4 articles. Didn't bring any, because you gave them all to us last week.
Yeah, I don't think we have any open.
Yeah,
on
I
our
don't
side
even
at
need
this
to
point.
ask.
Okay,
So. That's the plan.
all right, which one would you like to start with?
I believe we're starting with 9. Okay. Zoom people, give me one moment. I need to figure out how to do all of this. Okay, Article 9. Share screen. For the Zoom people, can I get any sort of indication that you can see it?
We can see it.
Okay, fantastic. We've got confirmation from in the room.
One for you, what's your name?
Thanks.
Is it crooked?
Is it crooked on the, oh no, it's, if you zoom in and it moves randomly.
Okay. Are you ready?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so I was working on this one this week. I know the printout is in black and white, so the digital copy might be more helpful.
Okay,
Really, what I tried to do, it looks like I struck out a lot of stuff, but the last time you all proposed it to us, there were 2 separate definitions for academic freedom and 2
Mhm.
separate definitions for responsibility.
okay,
So I just tried to collapse them into a like single definition for each.
got it.
And so things have just moved. Up here in 1, it used to have the definition of academic freedom. That has moved down into the new 9.2. And I updated like this sections 3 through 5 bit here right at the beginning. If we look at the comments, that was in the former. Sorry, I have so many controls. This used to be in the former 9.4. I moved it up. I feel like it gives a nice like outline of what you're about to read. I didn't really change anything verbatim in the, hey,
Sorry, I'm late.
you're
That's
okay.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank
we're
you.
running on few people, so.
Okay, I know, it's not a nice day to get outside.
Okay,
I can, people. Yeah, you have less start.
yeah, I'm sharing and Zoom today. Okay. So really the first thing that's new,
Mhm.
which I want to point out is in the new 9.2. This first big chunk here was from the original 9.1, right? So academic freedom within the context of all of this, we can speak freely as individuals. We added this sentence in here: when acting as an individual, GAs are expressly not acting in their capacity as a UF employee. We've expressed in the last few sessions that we've talked about this, that we're really interested in trying to separate like what is contract and what is individual. And so we were hoping that without inserting anything about discipline, that we could basically just draw this line in the contract and essentially say, outside of your role as an employee, other things are taking up. Do you have any questions or thoughts about that you want to share at this moment, or do you want me to just go through?
Well, I think I think there's some legal standards, with respect to like the first phrase of that.
Okay,
So I think, is there, and there may not, it may just be intended as written, like, when you say when acting as an individual, are there any qualifying or definitional implications or context for determining when that is occurring? Or is it just
that's
when the GA describes it? Like, what is the intention behind when acting as an individual? Could you just elaborate that a little bit?
yeah. So if you look one, like part, like literally one line up. The end of the CCL for academic freedom here says,
Mhm.
and to speak, write, or act as an individual.
Right,
So really, I'm just following suit with that.
okay, gotcha.
So I guess if this is still an insufficient way to
Mhm.
draw this line, maybe we could get some advice on how exactly. Because that's essentially what we're trying to point out, right?
Right,
So there's been a lot of stuff and a lot of concern about sort of conflicting
Mhm.
places. And so this was just an attempt to say, okay, if there's already this distinction of when we're doing this stuff as a GA versus when we're acting as an individual, following suit with that as an individual, we're not necessarily being held to university stuff because we're not acting in that way. We're now kind of outside of this system. That's the intention.
I gotcha. I think we're gonna
Okay.
probably have some conversation about that, because
Okay.
it is kind of a confusing thing, and I wanna make sure that we agree, like, what it actually means, and that it is, like, readable, you know, we have a clear distinction, because it's not gonna do us any good if you think it means one thing and we think it means something else.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? If it were to come up, so.
Yeah, I think we're happy to see what kind of language you all want to bring for that.
Shane, do you have any questions about that one specifically? This is something I'm gonna have to, we can caucus about it too.
No, not right now.
Okay, thanks.
Ava, do you have anything to add? About this in
Um,
particular?
No,
Okay,
I don't think so.
if it's okay with everyone, I'm gonna keep moving down.
Yeah, go for it.
It looks like here, again, that this has been stricken, it's really just been moved.
Moved, yeah. I see that.
So if you scoot down into, this is actually 9.3. I guess this one hasn't been numbered correctly.
Yeah,
So,
the numbering.
Sorry. So here GAs have a responsibility to, this was from the last one. Did you guys remove ethical? Do you
Yeah,
want to elaborate on that?
we felt it was kind of cloudy, like.
Another broad sort of
Yeah, it
statement.
was, like, I think just saying the standards of the discipline in pursuit of communication of scientific and scholarly knowledge, like, does the job. We also have, like ethical standards sound like an IRB issue, right? Like, if we're doing research, we already have to get those, like, that research has to be ethical.
Mhm.
And it is already oversaw by, oversaw a word.
Yeah, this might not be the best place for
Yeah,
judging ethical standards, just in the CDA.
Okay, so I think I sort of going down that road then, I think I get what you're saying. So I guess my question would be if, even if you have IRB approval to conduct a particular experiment and somebody were to engage in violating whatever those standards were, if you are acting in a research capacity where you are both, like if you're an RA, is the intention of the language that that violation would only be pursued through the student avenue, and that there wouldn't be a method by which we could enforce it as an employer?
Is there a way that you would try to enforce that as an employer?
I believe there probably could be. I don't know
Okay.
if there is, like, again, in that moment, if you're working in a lab, and again,
Yeah.
I'm keep in mind, I'm not a research scientist, so
Yeah.
excuse me for the terminology I use. You know, if I were to violate an ethical standard in a lab setting, depending on how I did that, if it
Mhm.
were solely on a personal research project that had nothing to do with my work assignment,
Mhm.
then to me, in simple terms, I would say, okay, that's more of a student issue probably. But if there is a component that I'm doing something in a lab environment that has to do, even though it's been approved by IRB, that wouldn't be in violation and it was part of my work capacity,
Right.
right?
It's still, if we leave standards though, I mean,
Yeah,
ethical would still, like, that sort of situation seems like it would still fall under the standards of the discipline
Okay,
without being so specific that it's just the ethical standards.
so let me ask you, Tom, I mean, are there not? I think there's a distinction between, it kind of implies that there's individual ethical standards in every discipline by removing the word ethical, whereas I think what we were trying to get at was there are overarching ethical standards across all disciplines to some extent. Maybe I'm not explaining it well, but I know that's one of the things we talked about. Shane, I'm sorry, would you go ahead?
Oh, no, I was just gonna say there's professional ethics. So across disciplines, I think this is what it might be alluding to is professional ethics standards within the discipline that they're teaching. So I think the AAU has their own broad professional ethics, but each sub-discipline should have a professional ethics or code of, which is also standard. So, I mean, I think it's just wordsmithing.
All right, well, yeah, we'll talk
Okay.
about it.
Yeah, I
We were
agree with Judy, and I mean, in my field, strategic communication includes public relations, for example.
Mhm.
And I know a lot of faculty will not actually sign the PRSA code of ethics because it says you won't criticize the field. And they're like, well, part of what I do in my capacity as a faculty member is look critically at the field.
Mhm.
So I think that's actually in line with what Judy's talking about. The professional standards more, what's your professional responsibility as a faculty member, as a teacher, and as a researcher. So I do like that in the pursuit of communication, scientific and scholarly knowledge. I kind of see what you're saying about the cloudiness of it.
Mhm.
I don't know, but I also, yeah, I'm interested what
Okay.
the like faculty contract language says on that.
Yeah,
I think it just needs to be clear that the standards either way are your standards as a graduate assistant, not necessarily in the discipline that you're teaching as a professional discipline
Okay.
or the content thereof.
It's also unclear, or it was unclear to us, where we could derive those ethical standards, right? Like, it just seems very
Big.
vague, like it's at University of Florida that is saying this, or is it someone else? That sort of thing.
So clarity there would be helpful.
Whereas like, as people that are trained in these disciplines, we are taught the standards of our disciplines.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I almost feel like it'd be almost better if you're observing and upholding standards of the university or something like that, because the disciplines can do all sorts
Yeah.
of stuff outside of what
Mm.
the university would want to encourage.
all right, we'll go back and we'll talk about that.
Okay. And then in this second point here,
Mhm.
we removed intellectual mentor. I'm not sure,
Yeah, so,
how often that's even relevant to us as GAs, if you wanna go ahead.
yeah, like, we might take the role of intellectual mentors of undergraduate assistants,
Mhm.
but that's never, intellectual mentor is not anywhere like defined in our roles, for instance. And our relationship to undergraduate students who we could be intellectual mentors is already
these
falling
avenues.
under teacher and like our roles as TA, instructor, or research assistant. So it just seems that it's unclear, unnecessary, and potentially problematic.
Okay, all right,
Okay,
yeah, we can go back and talk about that too.
okay.
I mean, I don't know if that's the primary thrust of the provision. I mean, I don't know if that's I don't know if that's a deal for them.
Cool, okay. If it's okay with you, I'm gonna scoot down here.
Sure,
These were already separately defined anyway, so I just broke them out into their own little sections so that it was very clear for everybody.
Mhm.
Right, so if we're saying academic freedom is this, these are the things that we're responsible for, and then to be very specific, this is all the either CCL or from a previous, oh, it must be CCL, right? Because it's not changed in
Mhm.
any way. So this is just grammar stuff. And then for research,
hang on, can you go back up?
yep. It was probably higher in the previous. Cause I've like added above it.
Yeah, that looks like the old 9.2. I'm pretty sure it appears to be.
Yeah,
the
it looks
old
like it's
plus-
literally
I
stricken
think
out
it's the-
here
I
as
think it's just the
9.2,
old 9.2.
but with a heading on it.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's what it looks like.
And then this, I just think was broken out into a new, like,
So that looks like it was 9. It starts as 9.3 and fulfilling assigned
Mhm.
research duties. Graduate assistants will be encouraged to exercise creativity. Blah, 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 blah. It goes, and then when it gets to research supervisor, that's when it looks like the CCL ends, right? Because then you have.
this
in
is
the
an
research.
addition, yeah.
Okay,
Oh, no, move verbatim from the last sentence in the former 9.6.
okay, so there wasn't a 9.6 from the previous
So in
proposal.
the previous proposal.
Okay,
And if I
Alright.
scroll down. Here. It comes from right here,
gotcha.
okay?
all right.
Okay, so that's 9.4. Again, this has all just been moved. This was stricken out before, I believe.
Yeah,
And then I've broken out as well the academic responsibility of the university. This was all in the previous contract. I believe you removed this, or no? It looks like Sikander removed this in the last round.
yeah,
But I haven't changed that in any way. That I believe has already been passed across the table. Really what we've added is this last little bit down here. Okay, that's Olivia. It's this here. So A existed, in upholding academic freedom in research, the university, so this is basically all relevant to teaching, and so in the same way as having a section on teaching and a section on research above, we just wanted to add something in here to be specific about research, right? So the university will not hinder any GA in their endeavor to explore all avenues of scholarship, research, and creative expression that's pulled from above, and present their research as they see fit. It might be captured above, but we thought it was important as we're laying out the responsibilities of the university to be specific about what the responsibility is for both teaching and research.
yeah, I think. So in a general sense, I mean, I think I
Mhm.
understand what the thrust of the provision is. I will tell you, and I'll get Tom and Judy's thought on this.
Mhm.
I don't know if it's as completely free of guardrails as it would be for a faculty member, depending on the level of experience and competence of the particular GA. So like, while a GA is earlier in their time and they're still, for whatever their discipline requires them to sort of get experience and learning, I'm not so sure that it wouldn't be the responsibility, not just
Mhm.
the right, but probably the responsibility of their PI or a faculty member or supervisor to be like, hey, look. But in that case, they wouldn't necessarily be sort of,
Hindering.
they're not
wouldn't
hindering
be the
their
right-
freedom, they're really trying to coach them and help them, so I just wanna be careful about, you know what I'm saying? Like, I think there's a distinction there, but it
Yeah.
may not, if the GA is. We wanna make sure they understood that that's what it was, and it wasn't
Yeah,
the PI just like raining on their parade or kind
Yeah.
of impinging on their
yeah,
right to pursue knowledge, but they were actually like trying to provide coaching, guidance, training, you know what I mean?
That might be something just to add.
Yeah, I just wanna be careful about how we, because there's also a difference between the first time a GA walks into a lab on their first day and the last day they spend in the lab before they're done.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? There's a huge difference in terms of the type of work they're gonna be doing.
yeah. This
So-
is just saying like facilitation.
Right,
Yeah.
I think
Sorry,
there is a difference between like being forbidden from pursuing certain lines of
Right.
research versus coaching somebody on how to pursue those lines of
Right.
research.
Right, and I think in the context of a GA, not just, you know, a student who's doing independent research as a student, not as part of their employment. I think I see where this is going, like, in a sense, the GA assignment for employment, you're, by all means, your supervisor is gonna determine what your research assignments are, hopefully in a collaborative way, but they are your employment supervisor, but they don't really have a role in saying you're not allowed to research this on your own time.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That said, I don't know if your own time needs to be in the contract or not. If this is just all about what you're doing in your capacity as a GA, but academically, right, you might work with another faculty member on a totally different project or
The real
independently on
purpose.
a project.
Yeah, the real purpose of this, right, is that we can say, where is it? Up here in academic freedom, right? We can say that all of this exists, right? This should happen, right? Freedom to discuss everything and to move forward with all of this. But down in the responsibility of the university, we're really just saying like, and the university has a responsibility to let us do this,
Right,
is the
on your
intention.
sort of outside of your appointment.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so
I mean, I don't know if that belongs in the contract or not, but I agree in principle.
yeah, I think I would wanna probably have more conversation about like lab environments, like
Right,
what.
with
If it's,
university resources.
well, that's the thing that I'm
Okay.
thinking about, like if there's, like, let's say, and again, this is hypothetical, and as I said before, I'm not a research scientist, so this is like. My attempt to explain it, let's say that we have a particular lab that is funded through a specific grant and that grant has constraints. And let's say that the student wants to pursue a particular type of research, which wouldn't be appropriate based on the grant funding in the lab, like if there's parameters that are laid out. and I don't know if that's true, or I don't know if it's not, I'm just saying, I think we wanna be careful about the word all, I'm just not gonna, the word all makes me nervous. Because it makes it sound like there's no way in any way, shape or form that we could, again, impinge upon it. But there may be times when it's appropriate for us to, based on some of the other factors, so I just wanna talk about it.
Okay.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
And I think maybe it's also the difference between the university prohibiting or hindering a specific line of research compared to the hindering of the PI who has to have research in their lab be specific to a topic, right? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I just don't know if we will be in the position to be able to separate the PI who, as the employment supervisor, is acting as the university.
Mhm.
Like, I don't know if we'll be able to make that distinction, because we wouldn't want, I mean, in a general sense, we as the umbrella employer wouldn't want to delegate authority to a individual supervisor that we couldn't then claw back. Like, you see what I'm saying? Like, well, the university can't tell me no, but my PI can, like, that's upside down from a hierarchy perspective.
If there's a better way to say this.
Right,
I think we'd be absolutely open
Yeah,
to
no.
hearing a counter.
yeah.
This is, the intention is basically, we have kind of a lofty goal,
Mhm, yeah,
right,
I
which
see it.
is out there on the table, and we were trying to make it
Sure.
laid out. in
Yeah, I
some
think
way.
I think we understand what the intent is, and I
Mhm.
think in general, I think we're good with, again, the concept. I think we just wanna make sure that we're capturing it in a way that is consistent with the amount of freedom that we believe that you're entitled to have without us sort of overpromising something that would be inappropriate for us to overpromise. And then, as Tom said, I wanna make sure that we understand the appropriate relationship between things that are purely academic decisions as opposed to ones that are more employment related. So, no, I appreciate that. I think we'll take a look at this one.
Cool. Okay.
I could share screen too. And
Would you
that
prefer
would,
that, then I can take notes?
yes.
Okay. All right, Zoom people, give us 1 second to reorient, because it's just
Okay.
Ava and I today, so we're switching off.
Okay, and
What are
then
we
I
doing next?
said 16.
16.
You're so good with your notes.
Not leave me down.
One for me. One for you. One for Patrick.
This one, that's fine.
Okay, sorry.
Sorry.
I was gonna say one for Tom last, but not in an exclusionary way. Just in a distance way. Okay, let me pull up the notes. Oh, I'm still
You still share?
the vessel of the projector.
Huh,
Well, we don't need the projector, because we have copies and we have electronically, so if you're sharing it with the people that are online,
that is.
No.
you don't need
Ava
to
is-
put it up there
okay.
for us, like,
All right, I'm just gonna,
unless you want it up there, we don't have to, I'm like, we don't need to see it,
Mhm.
because we have it here.
all right,
Where is my article 16?
right here.
Well, that didn't cut the owl off though, did it?
No, I have the owl plugged in.
Okay.
You all can still hear us, right?
Oh, no.
Life from beyond.
I can hear you.
Judy?
You're saying something.
Oh,
Oh, no.
I might need to be hooked up for audio.
Okay. Well,
Okay, hold on. Sorry, you guys, there's only 2 of us today. Judy can hear us. Okay, you can hear us. We just can't hear you. All right, give us 1 second to load you back in. Thank you. Thank you for responding.
This is-
Hmm?
This is not the note for 16.
Is it over here then?
Here, this one.
16 over there.
is this the wrong 16? You need to give us a different one.
No,
Oh,
no,
okay.
no.
We were just looking for the notes.
Okay.
Yeah, so, are they hearing us?
Yes, they are
Okay.
hearing us. I just can't type notes.
That's fine, I guess. We'll remember stuff.
Okay, I'll write them down.
we made a concession on the amount of RT hours, so they're still higher than 4.32, so that therefore when 50 hours,
Mhm.
so that it rounds up. We do want to keep the 0.5 FTE as the standard for RTs, and obviously we want to keep the RT hours. And we did concede on the parking permit, so we're not asking for a parking permit anymore. And we have also conceded on your language for the notification of graduate orientation, so we're okay with having as soon as practicable. We understand that sometimes orientations happen or are scheduled at the very last minute.
Mhm.
Do you have any questions? on
No, I don't
Article
think so.
16?
I don't have any questions. I think that the changes are relatively straightforward.
I was moving this. This was the main thing for the people in Zoom. Okay, and now we want to move to Article not 9, 8.
Okay,
Here's one of the drawings. Here's over there.
It's a mess. 8 for
Thank you.
you. 8 and 8. 8.
easy absence.
And
You want me to share?
sure.
Then at least you don't have to scroll too. All right, Zoom people. You're with me again.
This one has had so many changes.
Yeah.
If you
Yeah.
could just try to point out the ones that are like, 'cause some of the changes are
Mhm.
changes we've already kind of both agreed to.
Yeah, so I will talk about the big ones.
Okay.
So we've made some concessions on Article 8 as well.
Okay,
We removed the language of what is the number? 8.3
Top of the second page.
B, the top of the second page.
oh, about the waiver
Here,
on mental
About
health.
the waiver.
Okay,
So, and I will say, we
Mhm.
still believe that it is extremely hard to get mental health services
mm-hmm,
in a timely manner.
mm-hmm,
We have removed them, this language specifically, because the way that the contract is written right now and the way that we're reading it is that a paid leave is guaranteed for graduate assistants. And so there doesn't seem to be a timeline that the graduate assistants have to submit proof that they are going through mental health problem prior to receiving or being approved for paid leave. Just that they have to provide a notification. And so we're hoping that the university agrees that if the department or the university is going to ask for evidence of this, that it can be after the paid leave and instead of before getting paid leave.
so I think the notable lines to your point, Eva, are, so we're talking about in the case of an emergency, not
Mhm.
unplanned leave, right? So this is on line 47.
Mhm,
In the case of an emergency, the GA must give verbal notice of 24 hours of taking leave.
mhm.
In the case of a serious health
condition.
conditional.
Oh, it runs together with the header. I'm like, where does it start? Okay, so there's 49, yeah. In the case of a serious health condition, the university may request medical verification from a healthcare provider. So, yeah, I think that in a practical sense, it's gonna be, and again, I can check with the leave team, but in a practical sense, you give verbal notice, we give the authorization, we ask for the verification within a reasonable amount of time. And now if it gets into week 2, it gets into week 3, it gets into week, like, I don't know what their standard is in terms of how long they're willing to wait. I don't know what that number is, so I will find out from the leave team. I imagine they're gonna probably contact the person every couple of days and say, hey, look, what's the plan for getting us the verification, because we need it. But it's not, it doesn't say that we deny, it doesn't say we don't approve it only after the verification happens. Those things are expected to be happening simultaneously. In other words, I have a medical emergency, I need to go on paid leave. Okay, get us a verification, but exactly what that timeline is, because it's not contemplated in the language, I don't know exactly what the standard is, so I will find out.
We also lowered, bereavement leave from what we had 5 and 10 for domestic and international students to 4 and 8 for domestic and international students. And then, we tried to find a way, to do what we both seem to want. And that is, ensure that the people who are on bereavement leave can take paid leave like immediately. Right, that they don't have to go through the same timeline and wait to see what happens, that they can take bereavement leave and go on with an extended, not an extended, but like the paid leave as per 8.3.
Okay, so how would that work exactly? Because that's not one of the 5. It's not currently one of the 5 reasons for taking. Is that what the intention is to create a? Or it's not written, but it kind of, the implication appears to be you want access to all 8 weeks of the paid leave in case of a death?
Yes. If they need to take,
If they choose it,
yes,
So
right?
at that point, why would we just, I mean, because that's from my seat, that's a more fundamental ask than the bereavement leave itself. At that point, it almost seems like what you're asking for is, why would we even have bereavement leave? If you all can access the 8 weeks of leave for bereavement, why would we give extra bereavement leave?
Why wouldn't you? So you've admitted in the past that like the death of a loved one counts as like a serious like
Well, I think
toll on your mental health.
I think it could. I didn't say, it's not automatic. It's not a
Yeah,
fait
sure.
accompli, but sure, no, I'm willing to absolutely acknowledge that. Look, especially with somebody who's extremely close to you, depending on all things, I mean, yeah, people certainly suffer from medically, I mean, they need medical breaks based on going through the passing of a loved one. Absolutely. I'm not gonna argue with that at all. In that case, you've met the standard. It's not the person passing away. It's your own medical needs that allows you to access the paid time. But I thought what I heard you say, and correct me if I'm wrong, was if the person's an international GA, even absent of their own certification that they're having a medical condition as a result of the leave, we want them to be able to access the paid time off, even if they themselves aren't necessarily experiencing like a medical level loss.
No, I don't think that's the intention. It's
Oh,
the
okay.
idea that
Yeah.
if they need it, they can access it without having to go through the hurdles of officially requesting a paid like leave. Because if you are going through bereavement and it's such a difficult loss, you have let's say that this gets accepted, 8 days as an international student, 4 days to be with your loved ones.
Right.
And then you have to come back, do your duties while you're also trying to prove that you're going through something that seems untenable and awful, like it doesn't give you space to mourn. So what we want is to, if somebody needs this extra time
Mhm.
because of the death of a loved one, that they've had to go deal with, not only mourning, but also like maybe like, changes in estate and stuff like that,
Mhm.
that they can also go through the grieving process, the mourning process, as unburdened as possible.
So I think we're saying two different things, but I think they're very similar. I think
Mhm.
our position is that, could you scroll up just a little? Actually, I'm
Yeah.
looking up there because it's up there, but I have it in front of me. So,
I can scroll up. Where are you
yeah, that'd be
looking?
fine. Up in 8.3.
Okay. On the previous page?
Keep going, yeah,
Okay.
up to 1.5.
Okay.
So I think what we're trying to say is, look, it doesn't have a cause under number 5, right?
Mhm.
It doesn't say only for these reasons. So if someone is experiencing a serious physical or mental health condition, what makes it unable to, from the reason, in this case, we're talking more about a mental health condition. If they're experiencing a major loss of a family member and it's affecting them in such a way that they qualify for paid leave, then they could use this provision, whether or not their mental health condition is a result of the tragic loss of a loved one or some other reason. There's nothing that prohibits them from accessing this in a time of grieving. They would still have to, but I think the difference between what we're saying is, we want them still to actually have a medical provider say, yes, this person needs to be away from work.
Mhm.
Because I think that what we're not ready to agree to is that every time someone goes through the loss of a loved one, that they automatically would qualify for a paid leave sort of mental health condition. I'm not saying it's easy, but I think there's a lot of space between going through a hard loss of a loved one and that loss affecting you in a way that you're not mentally able to do your work. Like, I think there's a big distinction between those two categories. We don't want to prevent people. There's no intention for us to say, well, you can't access paid leave as a result of the loss of a loved one. That is not what we're trying to say at all.
Mhm.
But we do still want to utilize the same, verification requirements that would be required for any other reason.
Can I ask,
Sure.
because this is slightly unclear to me, if we're assuming that this happens, this situation happens regardless of if they're domestic or international, right? Your mother dies, your sister dies. You take your, whatever, 4 or 8 days of bereavement leave. You feel like you need more.
Mhm.
Can you get a medical provider to write that note, or does it have to be a, psychologist, psychiatrist? Like, what is the requirement?
No, if you scroll down,
Okay,
it just says healthcare provider.
okay,
That's it, that term is used very specifically.
okay.
Healthcare provider is, and I would defer to
Okay.
a medical law expert, but the term healthcare provider is intentionally broad to where if they have a license to provide healthcare related services, they would be able to write that. Now, are there a specific list of
Mhm.
specifically which certifications they would, I imagine they would include, all manner of medical certifications, but I do believe that there are also people who provide, counseling and mental health services who would also be provided to write such prescription, but I don't know what the distinction is. That's another question I'll have for the leave team is, is there a comprehensive list of what the possible qualifications are or are not?
Is there also a way that you could ask them, can that healthcare provider be outside of the US? Because what happens if a student leaves for something and then needs to extend their time and they are now not in the US?
Right, well, there is no, in the language that we have in there,
Yeah.
there doesn't say anything about it having to be a domestic healthcare provider.
Mhm.
The only thing that may be problematic is, I don't think I need to tell you that the healthcare system is
Yeah.
pretty widely in the United States, tends to be a little bit of an outlier in many respects. So it may be considered unusual, but that would be something the GA would have to work out with whomever they're going to see for, such, verification. Obviously, the intention would not be if someone travels internationally, that they would have to come back to get the certification to
Right.
then return again. Like,
Yeah,
that's not the intention of the way we wrote the provision.
okay,
So I could
If-
go to the student healthcare center if like my parents died or something, and they could write a note saying
I don't
she's
know.
going through extreme distress.
Yeah, I don't know who you would be seeing, like, I don't know enough about like which
Mhm.
person, like, you'd have to actually see a
Primary
provider,
care.
yeah, I mean, if you're actually seeing a healthcare provider. Then, yeah, I mean,
If
it doesn't
you-
matter,
If you're going to ask them, could you see if they have like an enumerated list
Yeah,
that we could at least
problem.
see? I don't know that we
Yeah, 'cause they
necessarily
probably-
need to
I mean,
put it in,
it's-
but
I'm sure this happens for all sorts of other types of
Yeah.
conditions, mental and physical, so
Right.
there ought to be a procedure or. a
and
way
if
of
they have any
validating.
thoughts on international versus domestic would be helpful as
Okay.
well. Just so we know and either to add it in to be specific for people, because I think that sort of clarification might be very helpful. Without losing the broadness
Right.
of it.
Yeah, and the other thing that I was gonna offer was, obviously that would also be an emergency. So we wouldn't expect in that case that it would be provided in advance.
Okay.
You'd have an opportunity, just like I said, with the
Right.
previous case that wasn't connected to the loss of a loved one. If you said, look, I need time, I think there is an important legal distinction between I need time to take care of my family's estate versus I need time personally because I'm dealing with
Mhm.
the emotional weight of what's occurred and I need time to grieve and to process and to seek healthcare. I think those two things are different. But, the intention is not to make it unduly. The idea is not to make it artificially difficult for someone who's experiencing a mental health situation to be able to provide simple documentation from a
Okay.
provider that says, Patrick is experiencing significant mental health struggles at the moment. He needs to be under my care and or the care of another provider. He cannot be at work right now while he's dealing with this.
Okay.
I mean, typically the big thing that would be helpful for the employer to know is like, is there, like, what is the timeline? If there's a timeline, if it extends beyond the 8 weeks, well, then that needs to be communicated. If it's 5 days or whatever, typically, most doctors are gonna give you like a date by which,
Mhm.
I expect it to be, they need 2 weeks or whatever. But that also could be a conversation that occurs between the individual employee and their supervisor.
Yeah. I think
So-
one thing that's still kind of unsure, and you're going to check with the timeline
Mhm.
for, when the university might request medical verification.
Yeah, if you don't have it in
Yeah.
advance, yeah.
If someone is going through, like, depending on what that timeline is, it
Mhm.
could be concerning to me if someone is going, like, grieving, right? Cause if the university is going to like hound somebody who is like going through like a terrible loss
Right.
for medical verification, that would be concerning to me, but, you'll get back to
Yeah,
us
I'll-
with
Yeah.
it, so.
And I'll be honest, I don't know if it may just be sort of a reasonable standard, like, in other words, people, they have a queue of all the people that have put in for the leave, and then some people, it's at the department level, and I believe some at central UFHR, and they will follow up. I don't know how frequently that is. I don't know if it's every 72 hours. I don't know if it's once a week. I don't know. And I don't know too, if it's just one of the questions that I have sitting here, you didn't verbalize, but I would have was, okay, well, let's say the person, the 8 weeks elapsed, they never verify it,
Yeah.
Mhm.
and now they come back.
Mhm.
How do we deal with that situation? Because honestly,
Yeah.
that just, based on your question, I'm like, well, I have another question. That's,
Mhm.
okay, well, let's say the employee just either A, refuses, or B, is not capable of getting it. What do we do? Do we dock them 8 weeks of pay? Like, what is the,
Mhm.
because I honestly don't know.
Yeah.
So I'll ask that question too.
Okay.
And then the last change was,
Yes.
we wanted a link to the unpaid leave request. I think it just
Here.
says link, we were kind of unsure. Which, it's just,
One of these like didn't work. We like opened up one of the request forms.
Mhm.
And unless you had like a specific, there were like 3 options in a drop-down menu, and unless you did like one specific one, it literally wouldn't even let you submit the form.
All right. So
That was the
I'll-
one I
I'll
sent.
check on the link.
yeah, I think it's a bit unclear, cause I think there are also, it's the same form with like other, staff or faculty who have
Mhm.
different types of pay
Mhm.
and It's a bit confusing.
I mean, the bottom line is it's highly possible that we either have to modify the current form or create a new one just for you all, because it probably wouldn't. I don't think the form in its current version would actually satisfy what we would need it to based on the proposals we're sharing.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So the only other thing that, and I will say this, the only other thing that makes me nervous about actually putting hyperlinks in the language of the text itself is maintaining them is difficult. And what I would rather do is include a copy of the form as an appendix rather than a link,
Okay,
that if someone absolutely had to, they could like photocopy it and email it, but that's not
Mhm.
necessarily the intended purpose. Because almost assuredly, actually, while we've been bargaining, UFHR completely redesigned its website. So if we would have signed this 4 months ago, like the link would already be outdated because I think it
Okay.
would be outdated because I think we just redesigned the UFHR website.
Okay.
So, yeah, I don't mind saying that we will maintain and update
Yeah.
the form,
Mhm.
but I would rather provide an example of what the form looks like
Mhm.
in an appendix than actually type out, Google form at ufl.edu form
Yeah.
number 7 GA
Mhm.
leave of absence, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That's fine.
The other thing that might be helpful too is, once that's out there and the form, once the link is live, that would be something that we'd be willing to make sure that you all have access to, that you can link to it, like if you want to link to it from
Yeah,
your,
we can link to it.
from your social media, from your website, that way, if people go to your website or to you all looking for it, they don't necessarily have to go all the way through the UFHR website.
Yeah.
If that would be helpful. We would help you guys with that too.
Sure.
All right.
Okay. Now on to.
Feel like we're getting closer on that one.
Yes,
Mhm.
I think so. Article 10.
How many you guys have today? How many? Fourth.
So this is the fourth
This is the
one.
fourth one. Okay.
Good.
Um,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So for this one too, we made big concessions, so we removed the early ratification language. We heard you when you said that you were so uninterested in, doing this.
Mhm.
And for the sake of, moving fast and getting full book done, we're, conceding to removing, this, even though this
Mhm.
was a big thing for us.
Mhm.
So this is us compromising with UF.
Okay.
We didn't make a move, on the minimum. We still stand by, the fact that GAs need a living wage, and that means that the minimum has to be a living wage. And that UF should provide a minimum that is in line with the living wage and with, existing and specific standards that UF itself recognizes, so that, for instance, like the J1, requirement. And so we have left a minimum stipend that reflects a living, well, it's less than a living wage per the MIT living wage calculator. But it is in line with, what is expected of J1, visa holders. We haven't heard really a good reason, to remove the, 10.2 language of the keeping in line, keeping the wages in line with the J1 visa requirements. We know you're not interested, but we don't think that's a reason enough to withhold living wages for graduate assistants. And then we've made some movement on the merit raises, so we have now 1,914 25 for 12 month and 9 month contracts. And then the rest is.
All the big stuff's on page 1. Okay. All right. I mean, I appreciate that. I don't have any questions. Tom, do you have any questions? Judy or Shane, any questions on this?
No.
She unmuted, but
She unmuted, but I didn't hear her say anything.
No. No.
Oh, she says no.
Oh, no, you've got the laptop muted. We can't hear him.
Oh,
You're not hooked up to the speakers.
hello?
Okay.
Okay.
We both said
sorry.
no.
Yeah.
So
No.
quiet.
That's why nobody was saying anything. I hope they haven't been trying to break in for a while. We just kept going on and on. Okay, thank you. All right,
Must have happened when I unplugged and then replugged in.
yeah, probably. All right, thank you for this. Appreciate that. We will go back and certainly have a conversation about this one. Can we talk a little bit about what you all want to do next time? I mean, obviously, as I told you before, and you kind of alluded to the beginning, like, we're gonna go back and we're gonna try to bring you everything that's on our side. I know we haven't tackled 4 though,
Yeah,
Yes.
so like, cause I just think that that's tied in with some of this stuff
Yeah.
pretty hard.
We're working on 4, but obviously Jacob isn't here.
Sure,
And he
I
was
get
kind
that.
of taking the lead on
Oh,
that
okay,
one.
that's fine.
So,
And
I
he's got
mean-
quals for the next couple weeks.
and we're out, so we usually meet on Thursdays, and because of the hurricane, we're now out.
Okay.
And Austin is doing his qualifying exams.
Right.
So we're in not the best spot for the next week.
Judy and I are out of the country next week.
So do we wanna just maybe not meet next Monday?
That would have to be a question for our bigger group. I don't know that we can
Okay.
tell you that right this moment.
Would you mind asking them?
Yes.
Because it sounds like
Monday
it may
might
not
not
be
be
a terribly
fantastic.
productive
And that would buy us some time to do 4 and we can like,
one. I think
bring
that
back
people,
7 or
depending on
whatever.
what happens, some of us may be like not in the best either
Yeah.
mind frame or may not even be here. Like, I'm not gonna
Mhm.
lie to you, I may have to go to South Florida. I may be canceling last minute anyway.
Mhm.
yeah.
So if we do it, I know if we do it early enough, you guys can avoid like, you're
Yeah,
not gonna
room
give us a hard time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
You know
okay,
what I
we
mean?
can try to,
Yeah, we
send
can
you
set
an
up something
email.
now and
That's fine.
let you
And, but
know.
if you're saying like, no, we really wanna meet, I mean, well, I'll make sure we have something. I don't know if we'll have all 4 of these, but we'll do our best to have as many as we can. I mean,
Okay.
we'll make sure it's productive.
Yeah.
But like I said, if you guys, if you're like, look, I think we can bring 1 article. Then
Okay.
maybe we just bag it and we do it the week after.
Yeah,
Mhm.
let us convene in a moment and then we will let you know
Okay.
as soon as we can.
All right.
Okay,
Thank you all very much.
thank you.
Thank you.
All right, people
Good
on
luck.
Zoom.
Storm.
Yeah.
Thank
Stay
you
safe,
all too.
guys.
We're gonna move to debrief.
We might kind of like 2:40. You got back.
Yeah, right before 3 o'clock. I actually sent that. I was sitting in my brother's garage, so I had to drop my brother off as he went down and put him on the shutters.
Traffic like in the middle of the night.